Norway's Svalbard Islands, located in the Barents Sea. More polar bears wander these islands than almost any other place on the planet. But today, the bears of Svalbard face wrenching change. In 1980, the ice pack covering the Arctic Ocean looked like this. In 2007, it had shrunk to 60% of that size, smallest in recorded history. The very survival of the polar bears is at stake. Can the retreat of the ice be stopped? The Arctic signals the beginning. And the future of the polar bears is a warning call that we are all on thin ice. Scientists now agree that the abnormal weather conditions in the Arctic could spread south. If the ice vanishes, it could accelerate global warming. This polar bear cub died of starvation. Polar bears call ice their home, and now they may face the threat of extinction. The only threat they have ever known is the human one. Now that threat comes in a new shape. Not spears and guns. It's global warming. Carbon dioxide emissions are causing temperatures in the Arctic to rise faster than anywhere else on the planet. The result is rapid melting of the ice cap, which, for 20,000 years, has gone through gradual, predictable change. Not now. Scientists from around the world seek answers. A series of expeditions are launched to find out what's going on above and below the ice.
The Arctic has often been called the canary in the coal mine. You know, if changes are going to happen, they're going to happen here first. So we would like to monitor the situation so we can actually verify that.
Greenland in the Arctic Ocean contains the first clue. Greenland is home to 10% of the world's ice. It's not green. 80% of its surface is covered in ice. Ice pack that rests on land slowly flows under its own massive weight. Such ice masses are called glaciers. This is Jakobshavn Glacier. It is the world's fastest moving glacier, traveling 35 meters a day. The glacier's movement has nearly doubled in speed over the past few years because of global warming. Ancient slabs of ice the size of skyscrapers are falling off every day. Over the past 5 years, the glacier's front has retreated inland by as much as 10 kilometers. In a single year, Greenland lost 150 gigatons of ice, double the entire volume of all the glaciers in the Alps. Time-lapse photography captures the dramatic separation of the ice from the glacier. 100 million tons of ice calve off every day. What is the future of Greenland's ice sheet? The vast glacier might as well be Mars. It is so seemingly lifeless and remote. The surface of the glacier is crisscrossed by numerous water channels. The streams are from melted water from the glacier. In the summer of 2007, a group of scientists aimed to unlock the secrets of the ice. Dr. Conrad Steffen of the University of Colorado is exploring the connection between these streams and the movement of the glacier. Steffen focuses on strange large pits in the glacier. These pits are called moulins. Some are huge, as much as 10 meters across and hundreds of meters deep. From somewhere deep in the moulin, the sound of flowing water echoes. Dr. Steffen and his colleagues are using a special radar device to try and figure out how the hole was formed. The radar unit is slowly lowered down through the center of the hole. As it descends, it measures the distance to the walls. The radar data is turned into computer-generated images. The team probes to a depth of 138 meters. Ice protrudes all along the interior walls. These are the traces of glacial rivers deep beneath the snowpack. Numerous streams have flowed into this moulin. This moulin has grown massive from millions of liters of flowing glacial meltwater. The area of surface melt on the Greenland ice sheet this year was 60% greater than normal. Dr. Steffen believes that this melting means ever more giant holes in the ancient ice. Several new moulins have appeared. Steffen believes a natural process that should take years is now happening in mere weeks.
This moulin we can see in the back is relatively new because the channel is very flat, and over the summer the channel actually grows deeper. And here the channel is maybe half a meter deep only, so I think that moulin is a couple of weeks, 3-4 weeks old.
The team decides to explore and hopefully film the bottom of the moulin. It's a perilous journey. 2 tons of water per second cascades down from the surface into the hole. The flowing water is more than 100 meters below the surface. And this water runs deep. Dr. Steffen believes the moulin reaches all the way to the rock underlying the glacier, 140 meters down. And he thinks all this water, the bedrock, may be the key to the accelerating retreat of the glacier. It works like this. Meltwater on the surface of the glacier passes through the moulin and flows under the glacier. This buoys the glacier up slightly, diminishing friction between ice and rock. This glacier is in a sense floating and speeding up the calving. It's a chain reaction that Steffen believes can't be stopped.
The prediction is by the global warming and the melt of the ice, the sea level will increase in 100 years, 40 centimeters. Our new insight in this dynamic event from Greenland shows that This is much more the increase in sea level.
If all the ice in Greenland were to melt, the world's sea level would rise by 6 meters. It would signal a natural disaster never before seen in human history. And warning calls from the ice in Greenland are just the beginning. The very future of the polar bear species is at stake. Gigantic holes in the Greenland ice signal cataclysmic change in the Earth's climate. It's the result of global warming, and it's happening fast. What's been relatively stable for thousands of years is undergoing a sudden, dramatic change. And that's hitting life here hard. A prime example is in the Norwegian islands of Svalbard, the kingdom of the polar bears. This is Spitsbergen, the largest island in Svalbard. The name means pointed mountains. The story of these mountains has been the same for millennia, until now. Life survives here in a delicate balance. Though food is scarce, animals have adapted to survive in cold, ice, and snow. Smaller animals feed the larger. And at the top of Svalbard's food chain is the polar bear. The largest can stand 2.5 meters and weigh 800 kilograms, making them Earth's largest terrestrial predators. But if the ice disappears, the planet's polar bear population will plummet. Scientists now estimate that the bear population will drop by 2/3 by 2050. It's been designated a threatened species. Polar bears depend on sea ice for survival, for it is on the ice that their main source of food, ringed seals, sleep. The ringed seal can make up to 80% of the polar bear's diet. Ringed seals build dens of snow on the ice in early spring to birth their young. And these babies are easy prey for the gigantic bears. They sniff out the concealed seal dens using their powerful sense of smell. Then they crush the snow roof of the den and prey on the seals inside. Polar bears spend almost their entire lives out on the ice hunting seals. But now, global warming is causing that ice to vanish. And the scientists who study that ice are worried. They're facing a mystery with too many questions and too little time to answer them. The first problem is a lack of seals. In March 2007, Spitsbergen is different than ever in recorded history. Ice-free seas. Seabirds, not normally seen here until summer, bob on the water's surface.
I've never seen so much open water as we see right here. I've been here many times, but this is the first time I see open water this close to the glacier.
What ice there is dangerously thin. Ice too thin to support a man, let alone a half-ton bear. The Arctic giant's habitual hunting grounds are no longer, and the bears themselves are as elusive as the ice. Two newborn cubs and their mother. The cubs are just 4 months old. Then, another family. These cubs are a year old. Polar bears nurse their young for up to 2 years. It's unusual to see so many bears in one location. There's so little ice, the bears are boxed in. And this puts mothers with cubs at great risk. A male polar bear is on the hunt. A male who spots a female with cubs may try to kill and eat her young. The male approaches the mother and cubs. But he passes right by them. He has spotted a young male further on. Male bears battle for dominance. They circle each other, waiting for an opportunity to strike. The battle has begun. The bear with the colored patch on his rump is the young male. At first, the old male dominates. The mother and cubs seize this opportunity to flee. Now the young male sinks his teeth into his opponent's jaw. The battle is won. The old male backs down. He slinks away. A population of 1,500 polar bears once inhabited Svalbard, islands that are 10 times the size of Prince Edward Island. The bears were so thinly dispersed, clashes like this were rare. But the shrinking of the ice has brought the bears closer, and their behavior is changing. The first problem is food. The lack of ice in early spring means less storing up before the long ice-free days of summer. At this time of year, a mother needs to catch plenty of seals in order to suckle her young. In spring 2007, mothers with cubs hunt for seals on the remaining ice. But with such a small area, there are too many bears, not enough seals. In these ice conditions, mother bears will run out of food. The polar bear population is at risk. In fact, the whole food chain is. The The Arctic is undergoing dramatic climate change. Experts largely agree that the species that live there barely have a fighting chance at survival. Scientists are studying islands in the Arctic to get a snapshot of global warming's effects. Dr. Kit Kovacs of the Norwegian Polar Institute surveys the seal population each year. Dr. Kovacs has seen the ice melt away in Kings Bay by early spring for the last 2 years, for the first time in recorded history. This is what Kings Bay looked like in 2004. This is what Kings Bay looked like in 2007. In a typical year, it remains iced in through May. Not anymore. Usually, ringed seals bask atop the ice by the hundreds. But the only ice left in Kings Bay is now slushy and melting. The only seals in the bay are a few bearded seals, a different species. Bearded seals birth their young on small rafts of ice, where they are harder to reach for polar bears. But ringed seals can't build their dens with so little ice. Like the polar bears they feed, their habitat is disappearing.
Ringed seals build little caves on top of the ice in the snow where they have their babies. And in those caves, it's really important that the baby get dry and warm. But the stuff that's on the ice, that's not a good place to have your baby. Normally that would be nice, clear ice beneath the snow. Last year, for sure, there was no sea ice to speak of on the whole west coast of Spitsbergen, and no ringed seal pups would have been raised last year in these fjords.
And the seals and the bears aren't the only species at risk from the disappearing ice. Dr. Jorgen Berge is a Norwegian expert in marine zooplankton. In their smallest form, they are all but invisible sea creatures, without which there would be no life in the Arctic at all. Zooplankton are at the base of the Arctic food chain. They support the fish upon which seals feed.
These are the very small, tiny little creatures. They are in fact perhaps the most important elements in the Arctic food chains. They are like small nutrient pills for other predators.
Dr. Berge measures the fat content of the zooplankton collected in the ice-free waters of Kings Bay. The fat percentage is much lower than normal. Zooplankton feed on ice algae that flourish under ice in early spring. The disappearance of ice means a lack of ice algae, meaning less nutrients in the zooplankton. Body fat is essential to surviving the Arctic climate. The low fat content of zooplankton, at the very bottom of the Arctic food chain, has repercussions all the way to the top. No species is safe. These waters around Spitsbergen should be a mass of solid ice. But the Norwegian islands are just one example of the dramatic change in the Arctic. Even more danger remains to be revealed at the top of the world. The Arctic Ocean has long been largely blanketed in a white expanse of ice. Beginning in late April, the Arctic experiences the midnight sun, a sun that never sets. the endless sun is now shining over a vastly changed North Pole. At 89 degrees north latitude, a tent city called Borneo, the closest encampment to the North Pole. It is a temporary settlement established for about 1 month every year at the beginning of April. Scientists from around the world make it their base of operations. It's remote, sometimes dangerous work. But this year, the Arctic poses a new, unprecedented risk. The survey season is about to be cut suddenly and dangerously short. A helicopter points north. Final destination, the North Pole. Below are fissures and patches of black, open water. It's a 90-minute flight to 90 degrees north. The study is being carried out by Dr. Igor Melnikov of the Russian Academy of Sciences. There's nothing to mark the North Pole. You simply have to locate it by latitude. 89 degrees, 59 minutes. "90 degrees, true north. Anywhere from here is south. The landscape is a testament to the perpetual movement of ice, shifting, splitting, overlapping. The ice at the North Pole is changing. The question is it changing more than usual? The way to find out is to determine its age, which is indicated by how deep the ice is. Using a special drill, a core sample is taken. The result is shocking. Just 70 centimeters, barely thick enough to support the weight of a few people. It is new ice, just frozen this past winter. At the bottom of the ice core, a smear of brown. This is ice algae. Sunlight reaching the bottom allows it to grow.
This ice, young ice, will be during the summer. It melts. It's no chance for survive. Means that more thinner ice in Arctic now.
Thinner ice means death at the bottom of the food chain. When small creatures die, large creatures like polar bears are finished. In the past, most of the Arctic ice cap was thick ice built up over thousands of years. It was an average of 4 meters thick, not 70 centimeters. Even ice-breaking ships had a hard time getting through. Not anymore. The airstrip at Borneo proves just how dangerously thin the ice is. The landing strip, once chosen for its thick ice, is scarred with potentially deadly fissures. The team is forced to abandon their camp early. The scientists will not have time to complete their studies. And answer one of their most critical questions. What will happen to the polar bears? Will they be able to survive? The Norwegian Polar Institute is looking for answers to that question. They take a helicopter to the islands to find and hopefully tranquilize a bear for study. Success. The bear will only be down for an hour, with no harm done. They must act fast. The tranquilized bear is a 9-year-old mother. She has 2 newborn cubs with her. The survey mission is being conducted by Dr. Jan Ars. He records the size of the bear's head, its age, and its weight. He takes a sample of its body fat in order to determine how well fed it is. Finally, he attaches a transmitter to the bear's neck. The signal from the transmitter will allow him to keep track of the bear.
We can learn a lot about what they do, so we can see what type of ice they walk on, and then we can figure out what they probably do different times of the year. For example, if they eat seals on the sea ice, or if they just stand on land starving and waiting for a few months.
Summer approaches. The ice will all but vanish. Will the bear cubs survive? The survival of the polar bears depends on whether their mother can catch enough seals before the ice melts in the spring. And that depends on the thickness of the ice. Scientists studying it in 2007 determined it was at its thinnest ever recorded. Amateur footage taken from a helicopter reveals nothing but thin ice everywhere. They are just 150 kilometers from the magnetic North Pole. At this time of year, it ought to be covered with ice. The helicopter is hard-pressed to even find a place to land. It is an hour before the chopper finds ice thick enough to support it. Finally, the scientists are able to make measurements of the ocean temperature, but the results are obvious all around them. Satellites confirm the abnormal Arctic summer that the footage captured. In September 2007, the Arctic ice cap was the smallest in recorded history. The area of ice was just 60% of what it had been in 1980. There is yet another possible answer to the mystery: changing currents in the air and sea. Observation buoys are attached to drifting ice to collect data on water temperature and ice thickness. One of the buoys attached to ice near the North Pole is drifting very quickly. It was expected to remain in the Arctic Ocean for about a year, but buoys released in spring 2007 take just 5 months to enter the Atlantic Ocean via a passage called the Fram Strait. Scientists look to the strait for more clues. they discover the strait holds other dire warnings for the changes unfolding in the Arctic. The Franz Strait is the Arctic Ocean ice pack's outlet into the Atlantic Ocean. Their surveys show that the amount of ice flowing through this strait is 30% greater than it was 2 years ago. Scientists believe changes in the wind may be one factor in the shrinking of the Arctic ice cap. Open water changes air patterns. The rising air current causes a low pressure zone, while over the ice a high pressure zone prevails. Between the zones, powerful winds blow toward the Franz Strait. This wind speeds up the movement of the ice pack, causing even more ice to be disgorged from the Arctic Ocean. The receding ice in the summer has brought the Arctic Ocean to a crucial turning point. With more of the ocean's surface exposed during the summer, ocean waters are able to absorb heat from sunlight. That means not enough ice will form during the winter. The Arctic ice cap is thinner, more melt-prone, more mobile. Eventually, it may be gone completely. Scientists are worried that the Arctic has reached a point of no return. The more ice melts, the more ice will melt. The extreme retreat of the ice continues through the Arctic summer. Have the polar bears been able to survive? In September 2007, another visit to the Norwegian islands of Svalbard in search of the bears. The ice disappeared from the perimeter of the islands 5 weeks earlier than usual. Male polar bears patrol the coast. They wait for a whale to wash ashore. With fewer seals to eat all winter and spring, this is their only food. And finally, they find one. One whale won't last long with a concentrated bear population. Jon Ars of the Norwegian Polar Institute goes in search of the bears he tagged with transmitters. This is the data on the movements of one bear. The green dot is the bear. During the spring, the bear made many circuits around the ice seeking food. But by late June, the sea ice was gone, and the bear came ashore. It moved around less and less. But Ars cannot find his bear. Then, Ars spots a small white lump on a slope. A polar bear lies dead. It's not the bear he's looking for. It's a bear cub, not yet 1 year old. There are no wounds on its body, suggesting that it died of hunger.
It could be that the mother just left it, in fact, if she wasn't able to produce any more milk. Summer is a hard time, yeah.
One bear, one story. A bear tagged by scientists in the spring tells another tale. Global warming is bad news for polar bears. A search over ice and shore for a bear tagged in the spring reveals no sign of it. Finally, following the transmitter tracking data, scientist Jan Ars spots the mother and her cubs. They have come many kilometers inland, probably to avoid the male bears along the coast. Almost certainly, they have eaten nothing in weeks. They are alive, for now. 2007's ice-free season lasts more than 2 months longer than normal. Ars suspects that global warming will be the final nail in the coffin for polar bears.
The warmer it gets, the longer this period without food also gets. So that's why we are so concerned about this climate change issue for polar bears. More and more bears will starve, and you will get fewer and fewer bears around. And some places in Arctic, it's likely that bears just disappear.
Months later, the bear tagged by Ars disappears. Its tracking signal stopped in late September and never moved again. The polar bear's fate is all but certain if global warming stays the course. Extinction in less than a century. The rapid retreat of the Arctic ice pack could be reaching the point of no return, ensuring the polar bear's fate. And the bears are the canary in the coal mine for us. Global warming in the Arctic is causing the kind of changes that once unfolded over millennia to take place within a little over a century. It's a vicious circle. The plight of Arctic wildlife in the face of radical environmental change is Chapter 1 for the rest of the planet. It is a warning to our species. Act now, before it is also too late for us.